for
Nsem-Pii will honor more, now Nsem so it is. Utie, now share on my YouTube channel.
Be the first to know Nsem-Pii TV.
Yes, I'm a BM edited by a Nsem-Pii TV platform. So now the ambulance saga keeps on unfolding. Na komodidi no kwa na egusua ekoso ewo Ghana ha across the political divide. Na any law professor extraordinaire and ama NDC Ato Forson Regrets omo enu omo ho se omo yusu ye sa route na omo ye omo hagen se ko mefa na omo de evade judgment and conviction. I don't want to call a fiasse. Ebe kaya tape once and sem our to the Bibri Agana High no be at the home come. And on a need the astute law professor, Professor Kwame Jan Bafo. A be secrets be when it comes to matters of this nature. I was saying Uncle Ponya Duma Tuesday if the Attorney General is presenting these cases in court one. Richard Japa, Kesel Ato Forson. Omumi no omo lawyers erugitama gruneta de sorry omo ho be kire omo court yi pa empese e be sen ho no me nko tie astute professor yi ni nkire mu a ode aba concerning this issue.
Generis, the lawyers say sui generis, he is in a world of his own. So you don't extend the totality of the inhibitions on private legal practice and private practitioners to the Attorney General. I tell you, his role is such that he is like in between. He is a midfield. It is not just about him getting people thrown into jail. He is a minister of justice. He sees to my interest. He sees to your interest. There have been occasions when I have gone to the Attorney General on matters relating to business I was working on and sought his assistance to guide in shaping an opinion so that we can protect the interests of the state and protect the interests of the business. I'm not the only person who has gone to him for help. Everybody goes there when they need his help. I had the privilege of teaching the Attorney General. Had the privilege of teaching one of his deputies. I've had the privilege of teaching lots of other people in government. But the Attorney General, his doors should be open to persons of different political persuasions. And this particular situation that you have been talking about, this recording and so on, if not because the Attorney General's doors were open, would this conversation have happened? If the Attorney General decided that he won't talk to anybody because he's the Attorney General. Now, after this, they are going to cause the Attorney General to be very inward looking because who do you trust? Who do you trust? The Attorney General is a minister of justice. I am yet to see, unless I have heard that more tapes are coming, but unless maybe there are more tapes I have not seen, but the tapes I have seen and the inquiries I have made, I see no overstepping of bounds. In some cases, I rather see an Attorney General who was actually probably becoming too much of a justice person, to the extent that an accused person who has been granted bail, who could not satisfy his bail conditions, could file an appeal to a Supreme Court judge, make an appeal to a Supreme Court judge to beg on his behalf, and the Attorney General intervenes and says, let him go home. He's a Ghanaian, so that the next day he can come back and complete the bail conditions. Hey, this Attorney General, you are saying he is what? He doesn't believe in justice. An Attorney General who is prosecuting a person, the second accused, who has a medical condition requiring attention. The Attorney General exercises his powers under Section 58 of Act 30 and enters a non-reproach requirement and says, because of your health, Go home. Don't come to court anymore. You are saying he's a bad man. Oh, please. What kind of country is this? I was even thinking that he was doing too much of the justice part than the Attorney General part. We were in this country when the election petition after 2012 was telecast live, not so.
Yes, we were.
Please, Ghanaians got to learn about how legal proceedings are conducted. And in fact, this has gingered so many people to want to be lawyers. There was another recent one, another live telecast. I've seen all kinds of cases being live telecast. So if the judge and the CJ are amenable, I mean, it brings the case into our living rooms. It's good for the democracy. And law students will also be watching how lawyers conduct cases, how judges conduct cases. It's all education. And it also brings transparency to the system. Why not? But it comes at a cost. I don't know how the cost will be paid and who will pay the cost. But live telecasts come with costs. It is TV airtime. And you know it is not cheap. Look, there is a rule of the thumb. When you are commenting on live cases, particularly for members of our profession, look, the Attorney General of the Republic of Ghana, as the lawyers would agree, is the leader of the bar. I am probably twice his senior at the bar. And I said, I taught the Attorney General in Lagos. But he is my leader when it comes to questions about the bar. When the Attorney General is in court, he gets precedence over all the lawyers. In fact, if he meets Samoukou Jeto in court, the Attorney General's case will be called before Samoukou Jeto's case is called. Because he is the leader of the bar. I entreat my colleagues to be circumspect with how they say things about that office. It is not for nothing that general is part of that office. All of us are attorneys, but he is the Attorney General. So there is something, the generalship has to be respected. The generalship. And for the bench, if you make a comment and you step the bounds, the judges in this country, there is no statute which has set out how you should be punished for contempt. It is the discretion of the judge. So those who are talking plenty, they should always have it at the back of their minds that if you cross the line, the judiciary, they will deal with you. And what people should understand also is this. The Attorney General has what we call prosecutorial discretion. To decide to prosecute or not to prosecute is a decision of the Attorney General. So he wields a lot of influence. And in the course of delivering his mandate, all manner of people go and talk to him. I have talked to him severally. Others have. Lawyers, judges, everybody go to him. So I beg all of us, when we get any opportunity to talk to the Attorney General about cases, we should not record the Attorney General. So as to force the Attorney General to go into hibernation. Otherwise, very soon, it will be hard for people to get access to him. So far as what I have seen and what I know is concerned, I don't think the cause for his dismissal or resignation are justified.
Right.
I heard people saying if what they have heard is true, he should be dismissed. But I'm saying that it should not be about if. The conjecture, if, it shouldn't come in. If, it should not come in. So I don't think so. And honestly, if you look at the conversation that has been recorded and the questioning during the cross-examination, I don't see where the prejudice is. But, you know, the lawyers know how they are conducting their case. it is up to a judge to determine whether the case has been so prejudiced as to call for either a fresh trial, a trial de novo, or whatever remedy a judge might prescribe. But I don't think we are there yet. I've heard that more bombshells are coming. Maybe when those bombshells come, we shall come back again to interrogate them.
And this petition for the case to be dropped.
Based on what I know, I don't think we are there yet. I don't think so. It's a lawyer's strategy. And
to elaborate further whether there are legal distinctions between recording a private citizen and recording a public official, as has happened.
Honestly, our laws from the constitutional framework through statute and case law, our laws have not distinguished between how you treat conversation with a public official and how you treat conversation with a private individual. Now, let me sound a caveat here. When it comes to the law on libel and slander, generally, the law on defamation, the courts expect public officers to have thicker skins. In other words, if you're a public officer and I say something defamatory, so to speak, about you, the court would expect that the level of the standard which is required to satisfy proof of defamation when the allegation is about a public figure is different from when it is about a normal citizen. Because the court says that once you have come into the public arena, you must be prepared to take some heat. Because if you come to the market, you are going to be treated like any player on the market. You know, so that's one slight distinction. But when it comes to recording without consent, our laws do not draw a line between when you record a private citizen versus when you record a public official. The standard as the law is now is the same.
The laws are indeed available, and since they are an enforcement on that, on the flip side, will also come into the limelight. And I will want to find out from you, Professor Jan, that what could be the potential legal consequences for individuals who make use of secret recordings without consent, as again has happened presently?
The interesting thing is that Article 18, which provides your right to privacy, and Article 21, Clause 1, A and B, are not penal provisions. You know, so the constitutional provisions don't have penalties attached. But the statutory provisions are in a different realm. And remember, you, the person whose privacy have been breached, can also have recourse to the civil law.
So you mean a public official can take legal action against him being secretly recorded?
And a private citizen can also do the same. But you see, most of the time, we run with the information. So we take very little time to look at the illegalities involved in the recording. There's a gentleman, I respect him a lot. He's called Nsem-Pii. He just has been employed at the University of Ghana School of Law. So he's my colleague at the University of Ghana School of Law. Around September, when the last year, when the IGP recording thing came up, he was one of the lawyers who came out very strongly on his page and was very categorical that the recording was illegal and criminal. And he didn't mince words at all. I have not heard him on this one. whether he stands by the same position. But previously, he was one of the lawyers who came out forthright to defend, to kind of condemn that action on the basis of the method by which the recording was done, the breach of privacy and our laws.
Professor Kwame Jan, and my earlier question to which I asked about public officials taking action against those who secretly record them, I was hoping I could also hear you speak to whether there are typical remedies available. I'm glad you tried to scratch the surface on that. But again, you did argue that on the flip side, either a private citizen or public official can take whoever secretly recorded them to court. But can you expand these typical remedies that could be available for any of these individuals who catch themselves being secretly recorded?
So, if you file a complaint with the police, they will conduct their investigations, and that will be a criminal proceeding at the instance of the Republic of Ghana. If you decide to go on the other side, it means you are going to a civil court, issue a writ, and proceed accordingly for violation of your privacy. Now, once you do that, you are going to make a claim for compensation. Now, for the criminal part, it is not for compensation. It is the state which is going to sanction that person for breach of the state's law. So the title of that matter will be the Republic versus the individual who did the recording. The title of the other matter, the civil matter, would be the person who was recorded versus the person who did the recording. The outcomes and the expectations are different.
Right. And beyond the legalities, Professor Jan, I want to also hear you speak to the ethical implications of secretly recording someone, particularly in the context of public office and political disputes like, again, we are currently witnessing between the NPP and NDC. And again, emphasis on beyond the legalities. What would you say could be the ethical implications within this context I've just asked?
Now let me. I don't. From your voice, I think you are a pretty young man. You should be below 30 years, not so.
Yes, I am.
So you see, some of us are old guys. Now, if you have been around this country, you would note that this recording thing is not new, and it spreads across political divides. There was a recording of a gentleman called Haruna Seku many years back. It was a big news in this country. This was the time of President Kufuor. I think Haruna Seku was an MPP chairman. There was a recording of one of my late colleagues, Dr.
Well, if you're listening to us, this is Town Hall Talk. Okay, you are back. You are back, Prof. You can make your point, please.
So the point I was making is, some of us are not new to these recordings,
right?
And they are normally in the context of political gimmicks, kind of. And I gave you an example. An MPP chairman was recorded during the time of President Kufuor. An NDC general secretary was recorded in one of the heated campaigns in the history of this country. And the gentleman was my colleague in the Faculty of Law then, Legon. May he so rest in peace, Dr. Niyama Josiah. It's been on here and on there and off here and on there. Now, look at the ethics of it. Just look at the ethics of it. Let's assume that you trust and confide in me, and you engage me in a conversation. I don't give you any indication I am recording you. So occasionally, when you are involved in a conversation, you may get carried away sometime, and things you ordinarily would not have said, because of the context in which you find yourself, you will say certain things to someone you trust, only the next morning to find that conversation viral on social media. Now, what does it mean and what does it do to trust and confidence between people and among people and sanctity of communications and correspondence? You know, I am a Catholic. The Catholics have something they call confessions. So you go before your pastor, the reverend, and you tell them your sins, not so.
Yes.
The next day, there is a recording of you confessing to the pastor on social media. How would you feel?
Betrayed.
Nsem-Pii TV